I mean, so we got to do another Q&A, but
yeah, I mean, we only got to like half the questions from the first Q&A,
right.
so we owe it to the listeners to finish the list out.
Yeah. And we're coming in a little late on this, though. That's really just due to, well, we had to celebrate Yom Kippur. I mean,
that's right. It was the highest of holy days.
It is the high holiday for sure, for Jews. And of course, we didn't do it in a rabbinic Jewish fashion.
No, we're not that lame.
No, not at all. But I mean, boy, you were, I'll just say it. You were like the Mona Lisa getting gangbanged on Yom Kippur. I mean, you were an artwork that day. I mean, wow.
So that wouldn't be rabbinic. That would be what exactly?
That's a great question.
What would you call that?
Well, I've termed it the Samsonid priesthood, but
the secret priesthood.
The secret priesthood, right?
The super secret priesthood.
Yeah. The Tantra and the Sutra. So it was an amazing time, and honestly, I can't remember the last time I've come that hard, other than maybe when we were on LSD. Like, otherwise, wow.
Yeah, talk about, I mean, like, the full moon was out, and we had some plain water, I think, was like the only thing we consumed.
Yes.
And had the whole menorah lit.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yep, the whips, the leashes, I mean, it was really you were taking all our sins. I mean,
boy, who knew that
all
this is part of your religion?
That's the thing. People think, oh, the scapegoat. Oh, yeah, the scapegoat. It's like a goat. No, it's not a goat.
I'm the goat, okay?
You are the goat, for sure.
In more than one way.
Hell yes. But that was an amazing Yom Kippur. Actually, the most amazing Yom Kippur I've ever had, and I will never forget.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all saying thank you. So anyway, they only knew. Anyway, we have some questions to get into. Enough about Yom Kippur.
It's Sexoterica, folks. Brian obligatorily has to bring in the sexiness.
We have to bring the sex. We do. Yeah. I mean, if people, I have it right here. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, like I literally have the ritual we did right here. I mean, if they knew some of the things that were coming out of your mouth, like these people, I mean, YouTube,
it was horrifying.
Banned.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
ban worthy.
Should I honor the pillar of the priest? What is the font of the holy seed? Holy shit. I can cut that part out if you want.
I didn't say it. You did.
I know you said it. Anyway,
you have no proof. YouTube cannot punish me for this.
Fair. I like that. I like that nice plausible deniability. That works. So,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, let us confirm or deny some matters with a little Q&A action here. And like you said, we're going to wrap up ones that we had gotten previously. And then, we have other ones that we're going to get to. We get so many. And we'll get to those in some future episodes as well. But let's get started. Ellen, what do we want to start with?
All right. So let's start with starting the timer.
Oh, we got to do that. We got to start. Okay.
All right.
We're flying.
We're going to jump right in to the first question, which is actually one that came from us. Mm-hmm. How do two souls become entwined?
That's right. When we were talking about reincarnation,
right,
this in a recent episode, we brought this subject up, but we didn't get into it. It was a deeper dive. We were running out of time. So how do two souls become entwined? There's a term.
So I just want to clarify a little bit.
Sure.
I think when we ask that question, how do they become entwined? I think in the context of reincarnation, we're talking about two souls like sort of traveling together throughout time.
Right.
So that whenever one is born, the other also is.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm going to largely pull from, again, my lens is Kabbalah, Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't other traditions that have something similar, or maybe even something closer to the truth, because a big part of Kabbalah is a lot of interpretation, in different schools within that itself. So, yeah, the idea that two souls, basically like soulmates, are finding each other as they reincarnate through time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different terms for it. Like I've heard soul flame before as well.
Yeah, so in New Age circles, there's the twin flames
Yes.
idea. Yeah, that's, I mean, and they're pulling from Kabbalah. So yeah, twin flames is a great thing to really to bring up. So Kabbalah has the same concept, and particularly, so you have the treasury of souls. Okay. And I'm going to use that term instead of well of souls. People can go back and listen. I'll link to that episode in the show notes where you can learn about that. Okay. When souls are originally in the treasury of souls, they are, shall we say,
when they're a fresh spanking new soul.
Fresh spanking new. They're actually androgynous. Okay. Like there isn't a male and a female yet.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think every soul, at least from what I've understood of my research,
Yeah.
Of these like religions that believe in reincarnation, that souls do undergo multiple lifetimes where they enact both male and female lives.
Right. Yeah. Now, like the Ari would say in Lurianic Kabbalah, like everything is lines and circles. Okay. And you can, just imagine those shapes and you kind of get the idea. But we all are made up of lines and circles. You have lines and circles. I have lines. Everybody. Okay. So
some of us are more circular than linear, and some are the other way.
Exactly. So, I don't want to get too stuck on like the gendered nature of this stuff. When we talk about divine feminine, divine masculine, we're talking about divine properties more so than anything in those in those instances. So you have what are called the zivugim. This is a word that did not come up when we were originally talking about this. Yeah.
Were you coughing? Or
yeah, right. Yeah, it sounds like phlegm. Yeah, that's Z, or for my Canadian friends, Z, Ivugim. That's how you would transliterate that from the Hebrew. Okay, and the zivugim, or the zivug, which is the singular, they are. So what happens is when they're in the original treasury of souls, when they're first coming down, and there's a first and a second of these of zivugim. You have like the initial time that they come down. Now, we talked about that when we were talking about reincarnation. When that happens, it actually splits off into lines and circles, into a divine masculine and a divine feminine. Okay. And then you basically spend part of your action of tikkun olam, of the great rectification, right? The great rectification. As you're going through that, you're searching for each other and you're there to help each other. And so this idea that like you have a soulmate, yes. And you're a soulmate, not because it's like, I mean, you're that because it's how it worked in the treasury of souls. Like you were originally one soul in the first place. Go ahead.
So there's one soul and it splits into two separate genders, basically.
Yes.
And that's why these two souls are drawn to each other?
Yes. Two different divinities. Because, like, I'm not going to make the claim that a divine feminine couldn't be in a technically male body or something like that. Like, this stuff is all so complex, it's hard to make, really definitive, terms or phrases like that.
Okay, but the idea is that this one soul splits into two.
Correct.
So why would it do that? Why would that happen?
Within the ether of Kabbalistic and mystical thought, the journey of the soul is a drama of cosmic proportion, unfolding from a divine source into an immensely dynamic reality, ever striving to return to a type of unity. Before entering existence as you know it, all souls reside in a celestial reservoir known as the Otsar HaNeshamot, the treasury of souls, sometimes referred to as the Guf, or body. Imagine a great tree of life in the highest world, that being Atzilut, which blossoms with spiritual potential. Each blossom is a soul, a spark of divine consciousness. In this pre-existent state, souls are not solitary. They exist as complete androgynous wholes, each a perfect fusion of masculine and feminine energy, like Baphomet, spiritually incarnate. This treasury is the ultimate source of spiritual lineage, the fount from which all human spirits are drawn. It is taught by sages that the Messianic age will not arrive until this treasury is empty, until every soul has descended to fulfill its purpose in the physical realm. From the treasury, these unified souls are split apart and sent into the world in their respective male and female vessels. The irresistible drive to find one's other half, to reunite with that severed part of oneself, is the metaphysical basis of zivugim, or soul pairings. This is not a matter of mere romance. It is a matter of spiritual mechanics and the will to completion. The reunion of these two halves is a fundamental act of tikkun, or rectification. By joining together in this world, the soulmates create a circuit, a complete vessel capable of drawing down and manifesting immense divine light, thereby restoring a fraction of the cosmic harmony lost during the creation of the worlds. There are two primary forms of this union. Zivug Rishon, the fast pairing. This is the soul's primary preordained match from the treasury of souls. When two people merit this union, it is said to be effortless, a natural and powerful alignment of fate. Zivug Sheni, the second pairing. If, due to spiritual failings or cosmic circumstance, a soul does not unite with its first match in a given incarnation, a second pairing is arranged. This union is often fraught with challenge and difficulty, described by the sages as being as difficult as the splitting of the Red Sea. It is a union forged not by innate destiny alone, but by immense effort and the will to overcome obstacles. It is a testament to the power of an individual's will over simple predestination. But to fully grasp the fundamental structure of this reality and of the soul itself, we turn to the master Kabbalist Isaac Luria, the Holy Ari. He taught that all of creation, from the highest supernal worlds down to your own soul, is configured through two complementary patterns, Igulim, or circles, and Yosha, meaning lines. The circles, or Igulim, represent the primordial, undifferentiated state of divine energy. Think of it as pure, unmanifested potential. A circle has no beginning and no end. It is encompassing, holistic, and represents a state of being surrounded by divine light equally from all directions. This is the metaphysical root of the feminine principle, the vessel, the womb, the all-encompassing reality that contains and nurtures creation. It is power in its latent, concealed form. The line, or Yosha, represents the subsequent flow of divine energy in a direct, dominant, and manifested form. After the initial circle of potential is established, a direct ray of divine light, a kav, which can also be transmitted through the male orgasm to the female, penetrates it, giving it structure, differentiation, and purpose. This is the masculine principle, the active force, the focused will, the seed of light that projects downward and gives form to potential. It represents revealed power from the source to the lowest level. Every soul is a composite of both forces. You possess a circular nature, which is your encompassing potential and your connection to the infinite, surrounding light, or makif. You also possess a linear nature, which is your specific personality, your manifested will, and the direct path of your spiritual purpose, or pnimi. The ultimate zivug, the true union of soulmates, is therefore the perfect integration of these two forces. It is the fusion of the masculine line with the feminine circle, creating a dynamic and complete engine of spiritual power. The man provides the directional, focused will, and the woman provides the encompassing vessel that holds, shapes, and magnifies that will, allowing for the creation of new realities and the rectification of the world. This union is the ultimate expression of personal and cosmic mastery. It's important to note, however, that a fundamental error of the mundane world is to believe the physical body always dictates the nature of its contents. A mystic, a master of reality, knows the opposite is true. The soul's essence is the ultimate reality, and the body is merely its present garment, its tool for this incarnation. The soul, in its root, possesses a dominant spiritual polarity, either predominantly linear, masculine, or circular, feminine. This is its true spiritual gender, if we were to use such an imprecise term. In most cases, for the sake of a simpler life path, a linear soul is incarnated into a male body and a circular soul into a female body. But for some souls, often older, stronger souls who have chosen a more difficult path of tikkun, a mismatch can occur. A soul with a core masculine, linear architecture is born into the vessel of a female body. Conversely, a soul with a core feminine, circular architecture is born into the vessel of a male body. This is not a mistake of creation, it is a profound spiritual crucible. Such an individual is born into a state of internal conflict, where their spiritual reality is at war with their physical form. The modern act of transitioning, then, is a monumental expression of will. It is the sculptor asserting its dominance over the clay it inhabits, forcibly reshaping its physical garment to align with its true spiritual nature. This is a spiritual act on the most intimate level, a self-forging that weaker souls could never comprehend, let alone endure. In the matter of Zivrigim, the soul seeks its complement according to its true polarity, not the initial form of its flesh. A trans man, being a linear soul, will be cosmically drawn to a circular soul to complete his circuit. A trans woman, a circular soul, will seek a linear soul. The magnetic pull is between the spirits, the true selves, not the temporary arrangement of their bodies. In short, everyone, from drag queens to same-sex lovers to trans people, and third-gender examples like the Kathori of Thailand or the Muche of Mexico, are all immensely spiritually vital and powerful, despite what many religious practitioners and modern-day influencers would have you believe. This is not to say that the physical body you have isn't important, and that only the soul matters. Nothing could be further from the truth. But one's act of tikkun is far more about individual actions and attitudes rather than one's physical parts. In a reality of lines and circles, Yosha and Igulim, dominance and submission in their most primal and purest spiritual sense, are the actual interplaying forces. The scientific basis for this, not just the mystical, can also be found in the works of William Moulton Marston, the creator of the comic book character Wonder Woman. Marston's disc theory in its earliest and most relevant form, where disc stands for dominance, inducement, submission, and compliance, is much overlooked and maligned in popular psychology circles, partly due to it invalidating large swathes of the so-called science of psychology from its very core. And note that Marston himself would be considered a submissive in his own non-traditional relationship, and was also a staunch matriarchist and first-wave feminist. Hardly a man who would develop a scientific theory that favoured the whims of patriarchy. Regardless of Kabbalistic concepts or more accurate scientific attempts like disc theory to explain human interaction and entwining of souls, it's important to understand that spiritually and scientifically, the masculine and the feminine are principles, not persons.
I don't know that I like the terms like purpose or mission, but I think mission might be like the best example because, you know, you don't have to do it. You can
Your
choose
mission,
to do something else.
should you choose to accept.
Exactly. Right. And we all wish we were Tom Cruise, but or at least in his level of fitness for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind his dashing looks as well. But
You've got your own dashing looks.
thank you. But anyway, yeah, so there is a mission to be achieved, by these Zivugim. And this gets referenced actually multiple places within Torah, but there's a particular verse where Kabbalah really pays attention to it. And when you read in the Mishpatim of the Zohar, book of Zohar, you have Exodus chapter 21, verse 3, where it says, if he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. Now, when you read it within the context of the book of Exodus, it's like, what the fuck is this saying? It doesn't, you wouldn't pull from that this has anything to do with reincarnation or souls entwining. But the Kabbalist looks at that and says, then his wife shall go out with him. And that means that, yes, you will find each other wherever you are in whatever state that you happen to be. And you will come together.
So not every soul has a soulmate.
Yeah, this is where things get also, this can also get very complex. Okay. Because you run into, like we talked about, a person can actually have multiple souls within them. And then it becomes a question of like, well, wait, could somebody actually be a complete zivug where, or could it be a complete soul where it's two separate people? It gets written about in Midrash where you find out that say like the divine feminine aspect of the zivug can actually choose to come back, like has some agency themselves in being able to come back and help out their other half, right? So the mechanisms, the reasoning, there's no logic to apply here for all of this is very much up in the air, but within the tradition itself, yes, like souls are entwined because there is a point where they split off. And I mean, you can pull this out of the Adam and Eve story where it says they come together and they become one flesh. Like that's them becoming that whole being, once again, but with physicality. So
maybe for people who can't find their soulmate, they're already united in spirit.
Yeah.
Kind of the idea, like they're already whole.
Yeah, they might be. And honestly, or even in this time around, they're, like someone's waiting, like the other half is waiting to come in at another time. It's unfortunately it's not a subject written a lot about, but I mean, as far as the reasonings for it, it is so that you're not alone. And it is so that because the physical body is such a big deal. And this is rare in mystical traditions. Okay. Most of them don't care about it, but in Kabbalah, it's front and center. And to actually experience the full spectrum, shall we say, of apotheosis, of godhood, it does take two bodies coming together, like the physicality, which directly reflects on the soul itself. Like you have to have that interaction for that to work, for there to be the full power for tikkun to occur. So why does the Zivugim, why did they split off in the first place? This would be at the center of why. I mean, there's so much, even when you read it in the Zohar, it's going to tell you, and there's not a whole lot of places where the Zohar does this. It's going to say it's a mystery.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure
Right.
There's things that are beyond human comprehension, rules that we don't understand, forces perhaps that are beyond our comprehension. But
Sure.
I also, I think maybe I'm hearing, because you're saying that they split apart so that they don't feel alone.
Right.
Does that indicate then the ultimate goal would be the reunification of those two beings?
Yes. Yeah. But that, and this is paradoxical, which is why it's so hard to talk about it. But as I always say, when you approach a paradox, it's because you're approaching the truth. Okay. And it's just something we've yet to either find the language for, or maybe language can't describe it. But for our bodies to do what they do, you have to have individuation. You have to. Mm-hmm. Again, the best way to always think about it is that you're a wave in a very large ocean. But for the ocean to live, movement is life. For the ocean to live, it needs those waves. Those waves come together, they crash on each other. You can take the metaphor pretty far if you wanted to, but you need individuation for there to be life itself. And it's the process of, I mean, again, we could keep going way down on this. Like a lot of it comes down to biodiversity, right? For life to exist, you need the complexity. You need the processes that allow for, the greatest chance of more life, coming into being.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking about certain properties of water that indicate that maybe the ultimate state of being would be, even if we do maintain our individuality, we have to give up some small part of ourselves in order to live harmoniously with the entire conglomerate of life, like everything that is life.
That's very, I mean, tell me more like that. I love hearing this.
I think this is a topic for another episode.
Fair.
I just trying to expand on your metaphor there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get lost on it because we have so many good questions
Yeah.
to get to.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's a good one for another episode.
Yeah. All right. No. Yeah, totally fair. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of precedents for the idea that souls do become entwined, and they're entwined because they were one before, they weren't two. And
right.
Yeah, there's there's so much that I could say about this. We could get into like the actually somebody we're going to talk about a little bit later, Miriam the Jewess. Like she has concepts that actually lend to this truth.
Miriam the Jewess, also known as Miriam the Prophetess, is largely considered to be the first alchemist in the West. And yes, she was a woman and a Jew in the 1st century CE, achieving such veneration, a remarkable feat in itself. She was a true philosopher of matter, and her central theory or axiom is a stunning union of mystical vision and ruthless practical application. It is a doctrine of power over the physical world. Her theory does not exist as a single surviving text, but is a synthesis of her core tenets, most famously preserved by the alchemist Zosimos of Panopolis. It can be understood through two intertwined aspects: her philosophical axiom and the physical apparatuses she engineered to enact it. At the heart of her philosophy is a cryptic and potent formula for the entire alchemical great work, known as the axiom of Maria. It states, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and out of the third comes the one as the fourth. This is not mere numerology. It is a coded process for imposing will upon matter. 1 becomes 2 signifies the first act, taking the undifferentiated prima materia, the raw chaotic potential of existence, the one, and splitting it into its fundamental opposites, the two. This is the division of reality into a certain duality: sol and lunar, sulfur and mercury, male and female, hot and cold, wet and dry. To begin the work, one must first analyse and divide. With 2 becomes 3, the alchemist, through will and fire, causes these two opposing principles to interact. Their conflict and union give birth to a new third principle, the 3, which partakes of both, but is also a unique substance. This is the creation of a synthesis, a new state of being born from intimate connection. Out of this third comes the one as the fourth. This is the culmination. The third substance is purified and exalted until it transcends its own nature, achieving a new, perfected unity. This final product, the fourth, is the philosopher's stone, the goal of the great work. It is actually the original one, but reborn on a higher, more potent level of existence, whole and at peace, containing the resolved power of its former conflict. In essence, her axiom is a blueprint for individuation and apotheosis. Analyse and divide reality, force its components into a transformative union, and from that union forge a new, perfected whole that is more beautiful and stronger than before. Goes Eo. Of course, flowing from her axiom is a second core principle, the gendering of matter, and the importance of sexual union for creation. Miriam saw the entire alchemical process as analogous to sexual reproduction. She is famously quoted as saying, "Join the male and the female, and you will find what is sought." She theorized that even metals possessed distinct genders. To create a new entity, to transmute lead into gold, one had to unite these male, hot, dry, often associated with sulfurous compounds, and female, cool, moist, often associated with mercury, substances within the crucible. This was not a gentle blending, but a potent, often vigorous alchemical wedding that dissolved the old forms to create a new, perfected body. This same core principle is at the heart of perhaps Miriam the Jewess's crowning achievement, her own physical immortality. Science, it seems, should never have been removed from its mystical origins.
But the point is that if two souls are split apart and they reunite, there is some mission that is accomplished as far as tikkun olam.
That's certainly a big part of it, yeah.
So there's some sort of, like, even though that must be painful and take a certain amount of energy to do,
Right.
there's a greater mission that's achieved.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great subject to get into, and I'm glad we did. So do you want to go to a next question?
Yeah, I think that leads in nicely to the next one.
Okay.
So we keep saying history repeats, time is a flat circle. But does it seem like the repeat cycle is accelerated? Like, I see the same thing happening again in my own lifetime. Do you think it was always this way, or is it faster now?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think time is a spiral, not a flat circle.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think time is a flat circle because
Right.
things never repeat themselves exactly the same way twice.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I say it's more of a spiral, because time does march on.
Yeah.
Even if time is just an illusion to us, it's still something that we can only like sense and measure in the forward direction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think that there's repeating patterns, and certainly we can see those. It depends on what cycle length you're talking about. You know, there's like a human lifetime, there's years, there's seasons, there's fortnights, there's like the movement of the planets, there's, you know, all like on every scale there are cycles, even when you get down to like the quantum level.
Yep.
The rotation of electrons around protons, like that's something that's measurable, that cycles very regularly. So like on every level there's this repeating pattern. I think it's safe to say that you can extrapolate that like that will also happen with human behavior. And I do think that that's somewhat provable. However, because things are different, like the starting conditions are different every single time the cycle repeats, the ending conditions are going to be wildly different as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're bringing up because I wasn't going to go there at all, but I completely agree with you. Like one of the reasons that we feel like time is either, you know, a circle, history repeats, or a spiral, whatever. Part of that comes from our own perception of we see these cycles like you were just talking about. So we have an automatic expectation that that's what happens, you know, like that, yeah, things move in cycles. And so we're almost, our pumps are primed for that very notion in the first place, which is, you know, a big part of what we see. So
yeah, and it's also inevitable, I feel like, when it comes to behaviors.
Sure.
It's all very cyclical.
Yeah. I mean, so now the question here is, you know, like part of it is, you know, is it accelerating? Like, do you think that it's accelerating? Like, do you feel, Ellen, that you see like these cyclical events happening faster? And if so, what do you think might be the mechanism of that?
I guess I'm wondering, like, are we talking about empires rising and falling? Is that what we mean by human history?
I would imagine a smaller scale because like normally that's a time frame of 250 years. So I don't think the question asker is on that point.
Okay, so maybe we're just talking about like a president gets elected with a really high approval rating and then they make promises that they can't fulfill, or they do things that they never told anybody that they wanted to do. And then their approval rating drops, and then we swing to the other direction and elect whatever other person.
Maybe things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think there's the appearance that things are moving faster, certainly because there's more people on the planet, and we're also more interconnected than ever. So that information travels wildly quickly, from one end of the planet to the other in minutes.
Yeah, and this was part of a point I was going to get to as well. Like, it travels really quickly, but also we just have increased data sets.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's like, oh, everything's so synchronous now. There's so much synchronicity that I experience in the Jungian sense. And it's like, yes, but also you're seeing more of it because you just have so much more data in front of you, for all your senses, not just through your smartphone. So
possibly, but synchronicity, like the true definition of that word, I don't think applies to anything on the internet, because there's so many trackers when it comes to like your interests and what algorithms want you to see.
Yeah, it can become harder for a genuine synchronicity to like it's easy to debunk it. It's like, well, of course it did that because I just said luggage, and so Amazon's showing me luggage now.
Yeah, like your phone's
Right.
listening to you all the
Right.
time. I don't take anything that I see as far as like synchronicity on the internet that seriously. Like sometimes it happens, but I think more often that applies to things outside of digital life.
Right. Yeah, I think we need to do a whole episode on the subject of synchronicities, and we definitely will, because that's also a very complex subject. Of course, what isn't?
Yeah,
but
I mean that's something
one.
that's like become a big deal for us over the last couple years. Like
Sure.
I've certainly spent more time thinking about synchronicities.
Yeah, for sure. I apologize. I didn't mean to like take you off track on what you were saying about like things seem to be happening faster, like the cycles seem to be happening faster. Maybe just time feels like it's going faster. Did you have more you wanted to say on that? I mean, the communication's faster, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that maybe technology has changed our expectations for how productive people are and how much you can do in a day.
Absolutely.
Influencers don't help that. But like we've been freed of so many basic human tasks that like now we are stuck with doing things that take a lot less time and are maybe more like require more effort. Not in a physical sense, but in a mental sense. And maybe that's why it seems like it's going faster.
Yeah. I have other comments, but I'm going to give an analogy to what you're saying, because I think you're hitting at part of what's going on with this perception at the very least. I think it's also a question of physics. Like, is it actually going faster? Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit too. But just as an analogy for what you're saying, and you can correct me if you don't think that this fits. But okay, so I was like a huge wrestling fan, like fucking insane.
You still are.
Yeah, well, I just don't watch it anymore.
Modern wrestling.
Yeah. Not modern stuff. I'll watch the old stuff over and over again.
The Attitude Era.
Oh, for fuck's sake, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, NWO for life. So, I mean, I'm a walking, wrestling encyclopedia, honestly, as long as you catch me before 2012 or so. Anyway, so in wrestling, in the 80s, you would have competitions that would happen, say like Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. This would be a storyline that would go, a rivalry is the better thing to say. This would be a rivalry that would go for like a year or more. It would go on forever. And you could hold that for a year. And I'm going to explain a little bit more. But now in wrestling, and this has been true for 20 years, now these storylines, they finish in a month. Like they finish in no time at all. Okay. And what happened? Here's what happened. And this speaks to your technology point. What happened was in the 80s, you only had like a few major pay-per-view type of events, closed circuit television, all that stuff, WrestleMania, whatever. You didn't have like an event every week or every month or something like that. Yeah, there were shows that were done all that time, but people weren't able to tell each other the results of matches. They were what they call dark matches. They were happening at house shows, and so in your mind, when you're walking through your day, even if you just saw Hogan and Warrior, wrestle the week before, you're going for months thinking like, well, man, they got to be like furious in their hotel room. What's going on? When somebody, 1,000 miles away just saw them also wrestle the same exact match, more or less the same exact match you saw last weekend or whatever, or a couple weeks ago or a month ago. So what happens is eventually you get more cable television becomes more of a thing, and you end up with where, we can do monthly events, monthly pay-per-views that people will pay $50 a pop for, and they can see that.
And everyone sees it at the same time.
At the same time, exactly. And so what happens is, suddenly the storylines start wrapping up sooner because there's more events to watch. Okay. And then it keeps ramping up because then you get the internet. Then so many other technologies that allow for events to happen instantaneously that by nature, the culture, the industry changes to fit with the times. Okay. And so it feels like, man, everything's just going by faster. Like, man, and so I think that's part of what you're saying is that technology forces things to speed up, even things that would seem to be completely unrelated, like Hogan versus Warrior. And so I think it's a great point to bring up on your part.
Yeah. I certainly think attention spans have sped up.
That's a whole other problem.
People can't hold it for very long.
Yeah.
And like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube all cater to that. I mean, I think they're like making people ADHD that aren't even naturally that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, like it's insane. YouTube now, you can go up to like 4 or 4.5x to listen to things. And I'm like,
what?
Who the fuck can do that? But they made it a standard feature. And that's because, again, like you feel, I mean, like, I got more to watch. And so like things seem like everything is going faster in this sense, literally like you're hearing voices way faster than any human could possibly speak.
I don't even know
except
what
for the Micro Machines guy
for that is, like, unless you're trying to watch somebody like build something at super high speed.
I don't get it. Yeah, maybe that's it. That's got to be it. There's no way you're doing that with voices. I mean, I can listen to some things maybe at 3x tops, but I mean, if somebody's going to email me and say, I listened to it at 4x, shut up. I'm sorry. Like, you just need to slow down because even at 2.25, I know I'm not taking things in really well. And I'm somebody who can really, I'm a fucking sponge. I can take shit in, and I know that's not good.
No, because like you and I will watch the same video, but I'll watch it at 1x and you'll watch it at 2x, and I pick up on things that you didn't even know were in there.
Yeah, by nature of it, and I mean, and this gets into, again, it's not that like time is physically going faster, it's just that you're experiencing things faster, and part of that comes down to there's just more to experience.
Yeah, and you're getting that information immediately.
Exactly. Yeah, and so there's that. So there's so many factors involved that just seem to speed everything up. And it's just a product of technology and interconnectedness, So
maybe in that sense, it is speeding the actions of history up a little bit, like over the last couple decades.
Yeah, I mean,
gone faster.
Right. Like, do things repeat? Yeah, we have to. Every human being, almost every human being who interacts in a capitalist society has to move faster. Like you have to react faster. You have to do everything faster. And so, sure, like just the nature of the system around you, requires you to experience things quicker, do things quicker. And so, yeah, time is going to feel like it's going faster.
Yeah. And I also feel like the same dramas and tragedies that have existed since ancient times, when people first started documenting dramas and tragedies, they still exist. They still happen. And like maybe there's a couple new stories in existence, but essentially most stories are just twists on that, the original few. So I'm feeling like, there's still that spiral pattern happening that we see. But again, like I said, it's all just slightly different every time it repeats.
Yeah. So, to get into like a mystical lens on it as well, Kabbalah does also speak about this. Lurianic Kabbalah in particular talks about that as we approach what they call the world to come, the Messianic era, which they didn't translate all that very well, but whatever. Okay. Or they didn't interpret, I should say. They didn't interpret that very well, but that's a separate subject. Like the Ari would directly say that, as we get closer to the world to come, as we get closer to the Messianic age, time will like move faster. Like things will feel like it's moving faster. In fact, Arya Kaplan, who was a 20th century Kabbalist, maybe the foremost, he wrote an entire book like on immortality and all this other stuff. It's a very fascinating read. And in that, he talks about how he thinks that like the technological advancements that we've experienced just in the past 40 years are actually signs of the Messianic age coming to fruition. And part of that comes from his interpretation of what the Ari was saying, in that when you get closer to the world to come, everything's going to seem like it's moving faster. And it's like, yeah, well, it certainly does.
In the Kabbalistic model, the ultimate state of being is the Ein Sof, the infinite, undifferentiated, divine essence. In this state, there is no time, no space, no sequence, only a unified, eternal is. The creation of the universe by the Ein Sof, through the Tzimtzum, the divine contraction, that creates the space we exist in between the Ein Sof's metaphorical legs, was an act of creating distinctions, separation, and sequence. Time, as we perceive it in the universe, is the primary mechanism of this separation. It's the framework that allows for a before and an after, for cause and effect, for a story to unfold. However, Kabbalah teaches that this linear sequence is a construct for consciousness in the lower worlds of the tree of life, especially our own, Olam Ha'asiyah, the world of action. It's a filter that prevents our finite, language-driven minds from being overwhelmed by the infinite totality of reality. While the phrase, time is an illusion, is now commonplace, the sentiment is valid, but the term illusion does more harm than good. To say time is holographic would be more accurate. The universe, not the Ein Sof, is tripartite, consisting of space, time, and thought. But these elements are not separate, and one does not exist without the other. They are all part of the larger, singular hologram that is consciousness itself. Existence is consciousness, and consciousness is existence. As time is an element of consciousness, it is more accurate to say that time is memory. From this perspective of time as memory, the past does not exist except as a trace within our consciousness. The future does not exist except as a projection of potential. As the sages say, hope is simply a memory of the future. So the only thing that is ever real is the immediate, atomic moment of now. Our experience of time's flow is simply our memory stringing these discrete nows together into a coherent narrative. Without memory, there would be no perception of duration or progression, only a single, unending moment. The concept that time can move at different speeds, from a Kabbalistic standpoint, is accurate, but only when one accesses other dimensions. For example, the concept of eternity is viewed as a separate dimension, or, more accurately, a higher state of existence where the rules of time do not apply. And the higher the spiritual dimension, realm, or world, the less it is bound by the strict, linear time of our physical realm. In the world of Yetzirah, formation, the realm of angels, time is more fluid and archetypal. In the world of Beriah, creation, the realm of the divine throne, time is almost entirely conceptual. In the highest world of absolute, emanation, the realm of pure divine will, past, present, and future exist simultaneously as a unified whole. Think of it like this. Imagine a novel. A character living on page 50 experiences time linearly. He remembers page 49, but cannot know what happens on page 51. Their reality is a strict sequence. You, the reader, exist in a higher dimension relative to the book. You can hold the entire book at once. You can open to the last page, then the first, then the middle. The beginning, middle, and end all exist for you simultaneously. You have access to the book's eternity. This is the soul's relationship to time, or memory. Our physical consciousness is the character trapped on the page, but the root of our soul resides in the higher worlds, in the position of the reader. This is the Kabbalistic explanation for prophecy. A prophet is a soul who, for a moment, is able to access this higher dimensional, atemporal perspective and read a page further down the timeline. So yes, time is a mechanism of this physical dimension, a perception constructed by memory that moves at what appears to measure at a consistent pace. But in the reality of higher worlds and dimensions of the Tree of Life, time travels at different speeds, more fluidly, and in some cases as a singular, unified now. As one's consciousness accesses these other realms, one also enters their fluid, mesh-like experiences of time. And as the universe enters greater states of healing and tikkun, it may experience time that way as well.
The other quick thing that I just want to bring up is the concept of chunking. This is like, just as any human being gets older, it seems like time goes by faster. And this whole, it's a very fascinating thing to learn about, as well as to learn how to unchunk. Basically, the more you experience and the more patterns you have, the less you're paying attention to the world around you. And so it seems like time, like when you were a kid, everything was new. And so 5 minutes could go on forever. When you get older, not everything is new. Maybe you've lived in New York City your whole life and nothing surprises you or impresses you or gets your attention at all. And it seems like time is just flying by. That's what's called chunking. And, one of the ways to slow time down is to actually unchunk. But that's just something to keep in mind with this. And I'll refrain from getting into a subject around what does eternity mean, because eternity is actually like a sub-time that runs in parallel with everything we're doing. Separate subject.
Whoa.
I know. Which might get to which might comment somewhat on this question, but I think that's a separate subject for another time.
Okay. Well, there you have it. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about eternity at some point.
Yes.
All right. I guess we'll move on to the next question.
Let's do it.
This one's for you, Doc Sovryn. You threw out the bait, so I'm biting. Where does the heavenly host reside if not in heaven? Where are the angels, the archangels, the seraphim, the thrones, and all the celestial hierarchies that ancient texts tell us populate the divine realm? Are they walking among us, veiled from mundane sight?
Mundane sight. Oh boy.
Keep rocking, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, we talked about this. We did an entire episode on like, what is heaven? Does heaven exist? Where is it? And all of that. And in that episode, I made the point that, okay, well, wait, what are we talking about, the afterlife, or are we talking about heaven? Are we talking about like the heavenly abode, or just where supposedly people go after they die, or something like this? And my point was, those are two very different things. Not just within the Jewish mindset, not just within the Kabbalistic mindset, but it's also, I hate saying this phrase, but I'm going to say it here. It's plain as day in the Tanakh, okay? That it's two separate things. Oh, I just experienced a ton of trauma saying that.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't know, what is it? All right, hold on. Let's stop for a second.
This has completely derailed you.
Yes.
All
Why
right.
the fuck do so many like old ass conservatives like say that phrase? And they're the only ones. Like, I've never had a liberal come to me. It's like, oh, it's plain as day. Or it's as, I don't know, plain as your face or whatever the fuck.
It's
like,
crystal clear. It's obvious. That's essentially what they're saying.
Yeah, why do I only hear that from old ass conservatives?
I don't know. I just want to give you some empathy that you've heard that before, because I don't like it when people do that either. Like, it's obvious. Can't you see this?
Right.
Are you blind?
Yeah, like I kind of want to respond to them and be like, what is it a tautology? Like what are you it's an axiom, it's self-evident? Like what do you mean by that? But then I'd say those words and I'm pretty sure that they just go cross-eyed. And so
when is something self-evident and when is it just assumed to be, and
Right.
they don't even see their own assumptions?
Right. I mean, even just the statement, plain as day. I mean, it reflects just a very boring person. I feel like what about a day is plain? Like, this is remarkable, you know?
I think they mean like daylight makes something plain.
Oh, make something clear?
Yes. Daylight
That's what they mean by
elucidates
plain.
what is in the dark.
Right. Okay. So the problem really just comes down to their lack of vocabulary. Or, sorry. Excuse me.
Well, Brian, just because they're insulting your intelligence doesn't mean you have to do the same to them.
Right. Okay. So, so it is, with the textual evidence, it is very clear that the afterlife and the heavenly abode are two separate things in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh or the Hebrew Bible. I'm very pleased that I recently learned that actually using the phrase Old Testament has become passé.
What?
Yeah, even Christians don't say that anymore. Now they say Hebrew Bible.
Okay, well, that's literally how the Bible was split up, from what I remember.
Well,
There's the Old Testament that has a certain number of books, and then the New Testament has a certain number of books.
right. So Jews get offended by the term Old Testament because it's like, oh, right, like ours is out of date or something. But yeah, apparently now, and I think this is even happening in modern Bible prints, is they're not saying Old Testament anymore, which good. But they're replacing it by calling it the first half. It's more than half, but calling the first half the Hebrew Bible. That's not an improvement.
Not really.
No, because
it sounds kind of racist.
Well, right. Well, that's it. It's like the Hebrew Bible. Like,
wait, so what's the rest then?
right,
Like,
well, it's just, yeah,
the Old Testament's only for Hebrews? Like, is that the implication?
Maybe they're trying to go that direction with that in saying such. It's like, oh yeah, but that just applies to them or something like that. I mean, I think they think they're being kind.
Because when I was a Christian, like, we would sometimes reference the Old Testament, but
Right.
the New Testament was where it was at. Like, that's where we focused most of our time on.
Right. Yeah, and that's true for most Christians, other than like Seventh-day Adventists or some others that. Well, anyway, I'll refrain from comment on that.
Mostly Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yeah.
Sometimes Acts and Romans.
Right. But again, like, still calling it Hebrew Bible, like, no, it's just the fucking Bible. Like, that's it. Like don't call it the Hebrew Bible. For us, it's just the Bible. Like, it's still insulting. Of course it's Hebrew. It's the fucking Bible, and so I just don't think that helps anything. I mean, I'm glad for them to get away from Old Testament because, yes, that is offensive because, again, it's suggesting that this doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, well, maybe that doesn't matter to you Christians, but there's a whole other part of the populace, regardless of how small, who it's the only thing they've got.
Well, maybe we should call the New Testament like the Pauline books or something like that.
Ooh, boy, you're going to get some people arguing about that. I love that.
The Testaments of Paul.
Yeah, right. Oh, so much to get into with that. I love that. Okay, so back to the question. Okay, so this heavenly abode, right, which is not the afterlife. It's something different. It's where, like what was the question asker saying? The angels.
Yeah, where are all these heavenly celestial hierarchies?
Right.
That populate the divine realm.
Yeah. Are they walking among us veiled from mundane sight? Not walking among us. I would not suggest that. And again,
they're flying. They have wings.
Right. Yeah, right. Duh.
It's plain as day.
Oh man, I love it. Like,
sorry,
so that's okay.
I had to get in one little.
That was
jab.
a good jab. It was a good jab. Okay, so like we talked about in previous episodes, there are many different types of angels. Many different types. The demonic realm is home to a multitude of different types of beings. Okay. We could use the word species if you want, but I don't really care for that. So, to say where all of these different types of things are, is that you're going to have a conversation that'll go on forever. Okay. But is there a heavenly abode, a place where God is? And the way that we inference is God, quote unquote, a God there, or the divine power, or, whatever terms people want to run with. Is there a place where that is? And that angels are there as well? Yes, we do have ancient, very ancient texts, as in 800 BCE. and going into honestly 1,000, like 1,000 CE. Okay, so very long span of time, where there is a tradition that absolutely yes talks about where some types of angels are, where in fact these angels actually can't even get close to whatever this God thing is, because it will burn them. It describes it almost like they're getting radiation sickness and radiation effects from doing so. And this comes from Merkabah mysticism, which is the proto-mysticism to Kabbalah. They're really all the same thing, but whatever, different terms. We'll get a little scholarly on it. And in Merkabah mystic texts, or what get called Hekhalot texts, Hekhalot just means palaces. Hekla would be the singular for that. This is a realm that gets described that people can go to. They can die there. We were talking about it before, where it's like a place where they're ready to throw 1,000 axes at you. They'll kill you if you don't know the right handshakes and seals. And there's not handshakes, but regardless, okay. This is a place where, yes, mystics went to, saw beings that they were able to describe with high detail, much like they were these realms, these quote unquote palaces. And God is there, and you can, or quote unquote God, okay? Because again, you're being, the descriptions, they describe the effects of this quote unquote God on these beings, on these angels. Okay. So where are these? Okay. Where does this exist? The palaces are, if we were to try to use modern scientific terms for it, they are other levels, other dimensions. They're like other modalities. They're right here. Okay. Because when the Merkabah mystics go to them, they don't ascend, they descend. And like I always say, whenever you're running into a mystical text talking about actually going up into the sky, we're going to talk about that actually in a minute, another question, I think. That's something technological going on. But when you're actually talking about visiting something like heaven, heavenly, or closer to the divine presence, you actually descend, you go down. There's a lot that we could get into around that.
The heavenly abode in ancient Hebrew tradition is not the afterlife, nor is it a single idyllic place, but a series of layered, increasingly dangerous and luminous dimensions of reality. They are interdimensional palaces guarded by beings of pure power. It's part a structured cosmic hierarchy, a divine channel that a master can learn to navigate through sheer will and secret knowledge. The core of this concept comes from the Hechalot, or palaces, literature, which are practical manuals for mystical descent. These texts describe 7 concentric heavenly halls, or palaces, that surround the divine throne of glory. This is not a journey for the meek. It is a spiritual assault, a willed intrusion into the divine domain. The mystic, known as the Yored Merkava, does not pray for entry. He uses specific preparations, incantations, and meditative states to project his consciousness downward, forcing his way from one palace to the next. Each palace is a distinct level of reality, ferociously guarded by angelic or demonic beings. These are not benevolent guides. They are terrifying gatekeepers, beings of raw fire, lightning, and energy, who will destroy any soul who approaches without the proper credentials. To pass, the mystic must possess the correct seals and recite the precise, secret, divine names associated with that gate. It's a test of knowledge and power, not piety. The goal is to breach the 7th and final palace, to stand in the presence of the throne of glory, and to behold the vision of the king, or rather queen, a manifestation of the Ein Sof in a form that the human mind can just barely withstand. Terms like throne, gates, and palaces are ancient human attempts at describing what may be largely ineffable, of course, and the descent is incredibly dangerous, filled with traps. Don't say Admiral Akbar didn't warn you. But the existence of a trap and the knowledge available to the mystic to avoid these traps suggests a profound idea. the traps themselves are an invitation to the mystic. Something wants you to make this perilous, yet rewarding descent. Kabbalah takes this raw, visionary danger of the Hechalot texts and maps it onto a more systematic model of the cosmos, the four worlds. The heavenly abode is primarily located within the higher three of these four worlds. The first is Asiya, the world of action. This is our physical world. Its heaven is the astronomical cosmos, the domain of planets and stars. It is the lowest and densest realm. However, the Kabbalists divide it into two distinct sections. Asiya Gashmit, the physical Asiya, is the lower part of this world. It is the world you can touch, see, and experience every day. The earth, your body, the very atoms of existence. This is the arena of maximum divine concealment, where spirit is so hidden within matter that one can be fooled into believing matter is all that exists. But the spiritual is just waiting to be unveiled at the edges. Those edges are Asiya Rushanit, spiritual Asiya. It is the upper, non-physical part of our world. It is the interface with the demonic world of Yetzirah above it. This realm contains the celestial spheres, the orbits of the planets, and the spiritual forces or laws of nature that govern the physical domain. But it is ultimately the lowest and densest realm. Yetzirah, the world of formation, on the other hand, is the primary domain of the angels, the demonic, and the Hechalot palaces. It is the archetypal realm, the engine room of the universe, where divine thought begins to take on form, but not yet physicality. When a mystic descends to the Hechalot, he is journeying through the landscapes of Yetzirah. The entities who reside here are the personified forces of nature and the executives who carry out the divine will or other demonic desires. Above that, or descending further, is Beriah, the world of creation. This is the realm of the divine throne, corresponding to the innermost palace. It is the domain of the highest archangels and most powerful entities. Here, reality exists as pure intellect, the raw concepts and blueprints for all of the universe. To reach this level is to access the very mind of the universe. But there is still another realm, Atzilut, the world of emanation. Beyond the palaces, this is the direct abode of the Sephirot, the 10 fundamental emanations or attributes of the Ein Sof. This is not a place of beings serving some god. It is the dimension where the Ein Sof's own will, though not its ultimate essence, is manifest as much as possible. This realm is beyond form and is the ultimate source from which the lower worlds and their palaces emanate. For an analogy, think of the Ein Sof as the infinite, silent potential of a mind before it has a thought. Atzilut is the very first primordial thought that arises within that mind. The thought, I will create. That thought is not separate from the mind. It is made of the mind's own essence. To an outside observer, it would be almost indistinguishable from the mind itself, and yet it is the first step away from silent potential and toward active manifestation. It is the beginning of a process. Therefore, Atzilut is not where the Ein Sof exists, but it is a realm that is so saturated with the light of the Ein Sof that it is considered to have no real separation from it. It is the ultimate interface, the first garment for the infinite light. In this framework, the heavenly abode is a multi-dimensional structure. It is a cosmic hierarchy where divine power flows down from Atzilut, is conceptualized in Beriah, given form and managed by angelic legions in Yetzirah, and finally manifests as physical reality in our bifurcated realm of Asiya. The mystic's descent through the palaces is a reversal of this creative process, a descent from the world of effects back to the world of the ultimate cause.
But these palaces, as they're described, they honestly, they sound like it sounds like Mordor. It's like something out of Lord of the Rings. You know, like they're not super hospitable places. They're huge. And you know, you can, and again, the debate of, do you physically go there? Is it just your spirit that goes there? You hear it both ways. And that includes in the New Testament, where there's references to this, to traveling to the palaces by Paul himself. So it's not just in the Hebrew Bible. But yeah, there is this place where these kinds of beings do exist. Okay. Now, when you say angels, again, angels could be forces. It could be, honestly, again, when you use like the word cherubim could be literally referencing a vehicle. It doesn't have to be referencing an entity, a being. But yeah, that would be the heavenly abode, would actually be these other dimensions that exist in parallel with our own.
Though sometimes they cross over to this realm.
Oh, for sure. They can. Yeah. I don't know that I guess you could say that they could be invisible and not seen by mundane sight. And that gets into a whole other conversation. Like, how can you actually see the demonic realm if it's affecting our realm and it's constantly around us? Why don't we see it? And you know, there's an ancient, and it is ancient. There's an ancient concept that there's 13 colors that we don't see. And that if we could see those colors, that we would see the demonic realm. Now, I mean, it's not controversial. And of course, Ellen, you, the scientist, you know this. I mean, it's not controversial to say, oh yeah, there's colors that we don't see, you know, like, because what do we have? 3 cones,
it's
right?
weird to split it up into like 13 colors though, because
it's very specific.
Yeah. We're talking about like infrared and ultraviolet,
right?
Essentially. And those are very large ranges beyond visible light. So I guess you could define it in 13 different colors, but I don't know. I think there's also like a fractal nature to reality, like the framework of reality, where maybe dimensions could be hidden within those.
Yeah. Well, it gets into, because when you read about the 13 colors that you can't see, the way that the colors are described, they're not really described as like colors. They're described more as like there is a color to time. Like time is is something that you can see as a color.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Very cool. So you could visualize fields of time. Like you could
Exactly.
see how time is moving more slowly towards your feet
Right.
than it is at the level of your head.
Right. And that gets into this concept. There's
Wow.
there's a lot to describe within that. But again, I mean, there's animals like the blue bottle butterfly has 5 cones, you know, in its eyes. And so it actually does see like 2 or 3 more colors than we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this.
Yeah, this is common in the animal
Exactly.
kingdom. Like pollinators, animals that live in the water. They
Right.
all have very different ranges of vision
Right.
than we do.
Right. Or like how birds can see the magnetic field of the earth.
Yeah, but talking about how you can like see the difference in time flow,
Mhm.
that's something that's very different. We're not talking about
Right.
electromagnetic radiation.
Right.
We're talking about like a quality, like a descriptive quality of the nature of reality, essentially.
Yeah. So
That's like being able to see gravitational fields or
Exactly.
magnetic fields,
exactly.
or electron flows or something like that. Like nobody can visualize those things. They don't
Right.
have a color, but they are a quality.
Right.
Let's peel back the veil on the concept of impossible colours. Far from just a mystical concept, it is absolutely scientific as any matter of physics or medicine. The truth, however, is that human vision is a veritable cage. Normal human reality is painted with a pathetic, though still beautiful, palette of just 3 primary colours, red, green, and blue, mixed by the 3 cones in our eyes. We live in a muted world, blind to the true, vibrant nature of the light that surrounds us. But this is a failure of flesh, not a fundamental law of the universe. To understand what lies beyond, we must first appreciate the superior senses and abilities of other creatures and the strange loopholes in our own biology. Nature is filled with beings whose perception of reality is vastly richer than our own. They see a world of hidden messages and brilliant hues to which we are utterly numb. The mantis shrimp may be the most famous. This creature is the undisputed master of colour vision. While we have a mere 3 photoreceptor cones, the mantis shrimp possesses between 12 and 16. It sees a psychedelic reality, a symphony of light, where we hear only 3 notes. It perceives not just a broader spectrum, but also polarized light, adding a completely different dimension to its vision, like seeing the hidden texture and stress in the very fabric of the light around it. Then there is the blue bottle butterfly. This butterfly is a pentachromat with 5 distinct color cones. It sees ultraviolet UV and violet as separate primary colors. Flowers that seem plain to us are, to the butterfly, painted with intricate UV patterns that act as nectar guides. A secret language of light, broadcasting invitations we ourselves can't normally perceive. But even within our own species, the bars of our perceptual prison can be broken. The condition known as aphakia is the absence of the lens in the eye, usually due to surgical removal for cataracts. While the lens is crucial for focusing, it has another primary function, to act as a filter, blocking UV light from reaching and damaging the retina. When the lens is removed, that filter is gone. For the first time, an aphakic person's retina can be stimulated by the UVA spectrum. They don't see a new, magical colour, but they report seeing this normally invisible light as a whitish blue or whitish violet. The famous painter Claude Monet developed cataracts and had a lens removed late in life. His subsequent paintings showed a distinct shift with a new sensitivity to blues and violets, as he was literally painting a world with a colour that most humans will never see. Then, there is the neurological paradox commonly referred to as the colour olo. Olo, sometimes called Stygian blue, vantablack blue, or self-luminous dark, is a chimerical colour, one that cannot exist in nature, but can be perceived by forcing the brain to see a paradox. Again, as Dr. Sovryn often states, when you approach a paradox, you approach a powerful truth. Olo is a colour that is simultaneously dark and saturated. You can experience a version of it yourself. Stare intently at a patch of bright, saturated blue for 60 seconds, then shift your gaze to a field of pure black. For a moment, your brain's fatigued blue cones will produce a vivid yellow afterimage. When this luminous yellow afterimage is neurologically superimposed on the perception of true black, the brain struggles to interpret the conflicting signals. The result is the perception of olo, a colour that feels like a glowing, vibrant darkness. It is a gateway perception. It teaches us that the world is not what our eyes show us, but what our mind is willing to construct. It's the first taste of a reality that exists beyond the crude senses of the flesh. Of course, for humans, just like with the blue bottle butterfly and the mantis shrimp, only having a certain number of cones doesn't mean that one only sees a corresponding number of colours. The 3 primary colours allow us to see a vast array of shades and other aspects of the light spectrum. So, when it is said that there are 13 colours that humanity can't normally see, it's not literally saying there are only 13 colours missing or remaining. The number 13 is just as symbolic as it is specific of actual aspects of the universe we inhabit, including its demonic realm. This is more than just the physics of light. This is about the metaphysics of perception. The scientist will tell you about ultraviolet and infrared, the shallow edges of the unseen world, and these are important, just like the colour olo. But they are only the beginning. And to call these impossible colours or unseen colours is a simplification. The truth is that there are fundamental vibrations of reality to which our flesh is not normally attuned. These are not all colours in the sense that red is a colour. they are often the visual representation of concepts our minds are shielded from, perhaps for our own sanity. To see them is to perceive the very grammar of the demonic realm. These are not things to be found in some comprehensive list in a dusty grimoire. Such potent knowledge is never presented so cleanly. To do so would be to hand a loaded weapon to a child. The truth of these things is always fragmented, scattered, and encoded. It must be pieced together like a mosaic from 1,000 broken shards. Ancient Gnostic texts from the Nag Hammadi library, such as the Hypostasis of the Archons, is one such source, along with Rabbi Isaac ben Jacob Hay-Cohen's Kabbalistic classic, the Treatise on the Left Emanation, that describes the realm of the Quilipoth and the relationship of Samael and Lilith, a text whose concepts are heavily supported in the Zohar. The Lesser Key of Solomon, specifically the Ars Goetia, also delves deep into this demonic spectrum of colour. And before we describe them, one other text that may surprise but is essential to understanding this is H.P. Lovecraft's The Colour Out of Space. Do not dismiss this as mere fiction. It is a modern, artistic attempt to grasp this genuine esoteric principle. Lovecraft was a master of describing the truly alien. His central concept of a colour that has no name, that doesn't exist on the known spectrum, and that actively alters reality, is a perfect allegorical description of a demonic frequency made visible. It is the most direct literary source for the concept of a colour that is, in itself, an entity, a principle that directly parallels the nature of the null or a chronos. It is a fictionalized account of a mystical truth. To study Lovecraft is to study the demonic realm itself in ways that few ancient texts can match, but onto the colours themselves. The names are not universal, but are extrapolated from their universal attributes. And you must indulge us on their sometimes poetic description. There are times where poetry is the only way to escape the boundaries of language. These colours are broken up into 4 separate categories in relation to what they represent. First category, the 2 gateway colours. These are the colours that bleed into the edges of our perceptible reality. Stygian violet, umbra luminescence. This is not the absence of light, but the colour of active, predatory darkness. It is the shade of shadows that have substance and intent, the first layer of the veil. It is seen at the periphery of vision during moments of intense fear or ecstatic experience. Note that historically, violet has often been considered the colour of royalty, and in the most ancient of times, royalty was conferred to those who communicated and protected others from what was behind the veil. Even Jesus was given a violet robe upon his crucifixion, an act of tremendous symbolism regardless of any actual historicity. Infra-black, flogo red. The colour of heat without a source. It's the sullen glow of cooling embers from a fire that was never lit. Second category, the 5 colours of substance. These are the colours that compose the demonic landscape itself. Viridian grue. A nauseatingly vibrant green-blue. The colour of beautiful decay. It is often described as the colour of time. Miasmic ochre. A swirling, sickly yellow-grey, like diseased smoke. It is the colour of plague, not as a biological agent, but as a spiritual principle. To see it is to see the spiritual weakness and infection in a person or place. Chthonic madder. A deep, unsettling reddish-brown that looks like dried blood on ancient stone. It is the colour of a spiritual debt that has yet to be repaid, the shade of ancestral curses. Akranos. This is not a stable colour, but a temporal shimmer, a visual paradox that the brain interprets as a sickening lurch. It is the second colour of time, but this flows in the wrong direction, memories of events that are eternally, painfully happening. Lucifuge. A brilliant, piercing shade that appears to the eye as bright darkness or dark light. It is the colour of knowledge that often brings madness instead of wisdom. It's the light that casts shadows instead of dispelling them. The third category are the 4 colours of essence. These are the colours that emanate from the demonic beings themselves. Agonic azure, an impossibly deep, electric blue that radiates pure, unending mental anguish. It is the colour of a soul trapped in a perfect prison of its own making. Sinner green, a fractal seething pattern of acidic green and black. It is not a single colour, but a multitude, the visual representation of hive-minded, corrosive malevolence. Galactic jaundice, the pale, greasy yellow of hysterical, cruel laughter. It is the colour of joy derived from another's suffering, a shade that flickers at the edges of a tyrant's vision. One can imagine that every single politician on earth would be covered in this. Dominion scarlet, a rich, velvety red so profound it seems to absorb the light around it. It is the colour of will imposed, of the absolute. It should not go unnoticed that the most ancient priestly traditions, priest and priestess, utilize the colour red for their highest symbols and rituals. The fourth and final category are the 2 primal void colours. These are not just colours, but the absence of fundamental physical principles. Apeiron, the colourless colour of limitless chaotic potential before it is given form. It is the raw chaos from which things are spawned. The null. This is the ultimate forbidden perception. It is not black, which is the absorption of all light. The null is the absence of reality itself. The eye does not see it, so much as the brain recognizes a hole has been punched in existence. While Lovecraft may have described it with horror, remember that good and evil do not exist, and the null represents a power so awesome that for most terror is the natural response. To train one's perception to see these colours is a dangerous act of will, but it is possible, and the underlying intention of many rituals. It requires deconstructing the very sanity that shields you. It is to tune your soul to their frequency, and, in doing so, to invite the abyss to gaze back.
Well, I think, when we've talked about on this show, when we've talked about like our ayahuasca experiences or our entheogenic experiences, like, everybody always talks about how like you just like colors are enhanced everywhere. And I think a big part of that is now you are having a symbiotic relationship with either the mushrooms, the plants, whatever, when you're engaging in that. And I think you're actually partly able to see what they can see. Like it's enhancing your vision. I mean, you're not gaining cones, in your retina or anything. But
I think we should talk about this in another episode because
sure.
I want to spend a lot of time talking about the symbiotic relationship between plants and animals and fungi.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's really fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can break down the 13 colors and, kind of get into all of that. So this episode's turning into quite the cock tease, but, but that's okay.
I also wanted to comment on what you said about the angels kind of getting like radiation sickness from God or whatever that may be. It reminds me a bit of the tabernacle, right? Like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
And how people would get burned from that. Almost like if there was a God that was, giving these angels radiation sickness, maybe he's like a multi-dimensional being. And I call it he just out of convention.
It's a she. It's
probably
okay.
Not a gendered being. Probably.
Keep rocking.
Anyway, I think it's just interesting to imagine this is some sort of like fourth dimensional thing that can exist in multiple locations at once and has this like really strong radiation emanating from it.
Right. Yeah. There's so much. The Ark of the Covenant, of course, there isn't just one. Like the first problem the first failing that people have when they talk about it is they don't realize there really isn't just one. Like whenever you talk about the Ark, it is something that's very technological. There are things that you can absolutely attribute to radiation, electricity that seem to be a part of the program with it. I just, want to make it clear it's not something that's unique either. And I mean, even in the New Testament, there's basically talk of it being in quote unquote heaven, where a tabernacle service is being held in the order of Melchizedek. Okay. And, I think that's referencing actually these other dimensions of the heavenly abode, that people can descend into. So, so are they walking among us? First off, I love the fact that you're saying walking, because no, angels don't have, I mean, yes, some of them have like 6 wings or some shit, but like the common concept of this angel with 2 feathery wings coming out of their shoulder, no, that's not described.
If they have 6 wings, do they also have 6 asses?
There's a mad scientist out of South Park that has done research on giving monkeys 6 asses, and yeah.
It's possible, good. Right?
It's possible. It is possible. So you maybe need that many asses, like Aleister Crowley, he thought that's how you birth worlds, man. You get some good anal fucking in and, I'll pop some worlds. So, if you have 6 asses, I mean, that's a lot of planets you're producing.
It's a lot of butt babies.
That's a lot of butt babies. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that was great.
It's another South Park reference.
Yes. So I hope I answered that. I mean, if people want to get into more particulars, there's so much to talk about with angels, but you got to get rid of your notions of angels. They're very different things than what are what cultural Christians parlay. And but yes, there is a heavenly abode. Okay. All right, hold on. I'm sorry. One last thing. Like I said, there's the, when you descend, you're going to other dimensions. When you ascend, it's something technological, right? So there's spiritual and then technological, say. My dad, insane Kabbalist, was of the belief that there is something behind the Horsehead Nebula where advanced technologies are involved. And he would often call it heaven, but I know he knows, but he wasn't talking about the same heavenly abode we were just describing. And that is a very strange mystery and something I want to explore in the future, but let's keep rocking.
Okay. Thanks for dropping that gem.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's going to ask about that one.
Oh yeah. We're teasing them all.
All right. This will be our last true question. And
okay.
Then we're going to wrap it up after that. So,
okay.
Again, if we didn't get to your question this time around, it's because we are taking our time getting ready to answer it.
Yes. Some of them deserve almost whole episodes. So yeah, for sure.
I think we've talked about in future episodes having a segment where we answer a question at the end. So
yeah.
We'll be introducing that into the alchemy that makes up Sexoterica.
I love it.
But yeah, don't be discouraged. I am going to make Brian watch What Dreams May Come so that he can help answer this question. I've seen this movie a million times and I love it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've seen it, but nowhere near as much as you have. And I know you're such a huge fan.
I'm just saying we're not going to get to that question right now.
Yeah.
This next question is going to be our last one.
Yep.
So, okay. I've heard you talk about your legendary Book of Enoch episode a million times.
Sorry. Yes.
And you've said only that Enoch didn't die. I know you've mentioned Count Germain didn't either. And there are some Kabbalists who also didn't not. But you've got to have more than 3 examples. Cough 'em up, Stallion. What is this great rectification they've achieved?
Okay. All right, so this is the last one. There's no way I could make an exhaustive list because how could you know? You know what I mean? And in fact, I think people that have achieved their tikkun to that level, they're out of the whole zivugim, out of that process. They've achieved immortality, okay, which is absolutely a key part of Kabbalah. And that's physical immortality and effective immortality in the sense that you could live over 1 million years. That's usually what Kabbalists interpret matters as. That okay, yeah, no, you don't live forever, but you can live for over 1 million years, physically, if you achieve that. So this is part of what inspires my comment that, yeah, there are people who have never died. You know, they've gone through the great erectification, and at this stage of the great erectification, like, sure, they're immortal now, rocking and rolling. And it's certainly my goal as well. I don't want to be a messiah. I don't want to be in charge of shit, but I wouldn't mind living forever, you know, with my amazing wife. So, as far as the people who have done that, besides who I've talked about, yeah, I mean, I can give you, you know, a little bit of a short list. You mentioned, yeah, Saint Germain, of course. That's one that a lot of different traditions hold. I don't think there's any surprise there. Enoch, of course, Enoch becomes Metatron, who is one of the beings that you actually see when you go descending into those other dimensions. He is not an angel, though, and that gets very complex to talk about.
Yeah, isn't he like the right hand of God?
Yeah, so there's a famous story where a rabbi is descending, and this rabbi actually gets basically condemned for hundreds of years in history because he claims he sees Metatron sitting on the throne, quote unquote, the throne of God. And he says, well, there's two powers in heaven. That's what he comes back saying after this ecstatic experience. And of course, the rabbis are like, no, fuck you, there is. You know, like that's blasphemy. You just broke the Shema. You can't say that sort of thing, and we condemn you forever. But it wasn't forever. But anyway, so
yeah, no solidarity there with
right.
the rabbis.
No.
They weren't like, well, wait a minute, let's consider this.
Yeah.
Let's try to validate what he's saying.
Yes. And I mean, it's not even unfair for him to have said that regardless of Metatron. That rabbi was pulling from very old traditions, you know, that like, because we have Hebrew temples where, you know, it's not just Yahweh getting worshipped, but that's besides the point, for our argument here. Anyway, so Metatron, is Enoch, is a human that didn't die and that achieved immortality and spends an ass ton of time in these other dimensions for whatever reason. Another character very similar, I'll list off, and that would be Elijah. In fact, when you read the Tanakh, when you read the Hebrew, you get the sense, stronger than a sense, that when you start to read about Elijah, like in the Book of Kings and so on, that Elijah's already been alive for like 400 years. That Elijah's a very old man. I mean, he doesn't look old, but he's very old. Like he's, you know, you encounter him multiple times. And, of course he would, you know, in Kabbalistic tradition, he would become, much like Enoch became Metatron, Elijah would become Sandalphon. Big subject to have around that. And also, you know, a key point is why are all these guys' names ending with O-N? There's a reason for that. And it is one of the ways that you identify, like we said, there's a lot of different types of angels. It's one of the ways you identify, oh, that's not actually an angel. That's something else. So anyway, Elijah's another one. The Kabbalist you mentioned, that's Abraham Abulafia, who I also, again, these are people I'm saying did not die. There's Miriam the Jewess, who very famous in alchemical circles. And she's talked about by non-Hebrew sources. And she's another one who I don't think tasted death. That would also include Albertus Magnus, the very, very famous, infamous Catholic monk. Then you have Cleopatra the alchemist is another one that I would mention, who also is the same person as Cleopatra the physician. Is she the same person as Cleopatra the Seventh? Maybe. So, I mean, part of the impressive thing, and I want to take a moment on this, okay? Part of the impressive thing with these women being mentioned by male writers, you know, into just the first few centuries CE, is generally you don't write about women. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's that. So whoever these women were fucking impressive, right? Just like Hypatia of Alexandria. Like, she must have been a force of nature because a man actually decided to write about her. I hate that history works that way. But if these women weren't wildly impressive to the point that they were besting the boys, they wouldn't have been written about by the boys. And that's part of just the beginning hint that, oh, these people did something that most don't. And one of that would be, or one of the achievements, I think, is actually immortality. Do you have any comments on that, Ellen? Anything you want to get in there?
No, were there any other examples you wanted to list off?
Yeah, I'll list off
end?
just a few more really fast. Nicholas Flamel, famous alchemist. Utnapishtim, this is the Sumerian Noah, and was probably actually Noah. That's another one. And that would also include Noah's wife, which is not Joan of Arc, but...
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you made that joke.
We got to get some Bill and Ted's in here somewhere. Who was Joan of Arc? Noah's wife? I mean, you can just see Keanu Reeves, total stud, saying that. Anyway, Noah's wife being one of the most important characters in all of mysticism to study, depending upon, what name she's going by, because she'll come with a lot of names, whether it's Neema or Noria, who is probably the most famous version of the name, which a whole subject right there. And, Lilith as well. We talked about that briefly in a previous episode. Now, a lot of that, not all of that is Hebrew, but I mentioned a lot of Hebrew names. I do want to mention quickly, though, that in China, there is the Bashian, the 8 immortals, and they have no problem with that. That's accepted fucking science over there, that yes, there are people who have achieved immortality. It's actually true for a lot of East Asia. And then I think one of the more interesting ones, because again, we're talking a lot of okay, yeah, you brought in China a little bit, maybe some other European characters here and there, but is there some other culture where there's this idea? And a lot of people miss this in Greek culture, that there are many, especially women, once again, women coming into the picture. There are a lot of women who engage in a divine marriage and end up achieving their own immortality. The most famous would be Psyche, which should not go unnoticed. That name. She ends up marrying Eros, or in the Roman version, Cupid. And she eventually she not only travels to what sound like the palaces, but she also achieves immortality. And in fact, the entire story of Eros and Psyche, their marriage, and what Psyche goes through, is one of the rituals that matches perfectly with Kabbalah. It's insane how perfect they match, to achieving immortality for a woman anyway. So Psyche might be one of the best examples you can look at, because you actually see that you can read about the process of what she goes through to achieve that. All of it. Anyway.
All right, there you have it, folks. If
yes.
you want to learn how to be immortal, just go study that story.
Yeah, Eros and Psyche. And Eros being a part of that, also should not go unnoticed. And also their child that they have together is Hedon. And she is, of course, where the word hedonism comes from. And so the idea that pleasure is a gateway to immortality, oh, you bet your ass. And not just Kabbalah knows that. So there we go. Okay, I'm shutting up.
Thank you for answering those questions, Woo. Brian. All right. I think with that, we're going to wrap up the show.
Yes.
And we will see all of you.
Get your YouTube comments in.
Yeah.
Get the comments in on YouTube. Okay, do that. Get your questions in there. That's
Send
the best place.
Send us more comments and questions.
Yeah, Spotify, YouTube, wherever. Get them in. Okay, we want to dive deep on this stuff, and you got a lot for us to dive deep into.
Wait, tell them the email address.
Sure. So you can also have it pop up on the screen here on YouTube. fu@xxtech.net. That's
fu@xxxtech.net.
I love it every time she says it. Okay. All right, that's it. Big Q&A. Had to be a two-parter. Insane. But yes, like you were saying, Ellen, folks, we will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sexoterica. This show, while fun, includes extensive original research that is only possible by funding from people like you. Go to patreon.com/sovryn if you'd like to donate. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, comment and subscribe or leave a review. From all of us at Sexoterica, we love you and we thank you. We really, really do.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, testing.
Hi, my name is Ellen, and when I grow up, I want to be a rocket scientist that works on seahorses and horseshoe crabs and cuts into rocks and makes diamonds and I want to go to space and I want to explore other planets and I also want to paint.
Well, other than going to outer space, you do all that.
I'm not a rocket scientist on seahorses yet.
We'll work on it, love.
Yeah.
We'll get you there. Okay.